Hey folks, Jack from Peach Guitars here. Thanks for tuning into another video. A different surrounding right now. We're actually on the Peach Saloon stage, ready for a clinic with these two fantastic virtuoso, esteemed guitar players and two fine gentlemen as well. Mr. Martin Miller, Mr. Tom Quayle.
Howdy.
Lovely to meet you guys.
Howdy in here.
Well, yeah, whatever you feel comfortable saying. This is quite the setting, and I think it's going to go down very well tonight. We're just about to kick off in about an hour and a bit. So these guys have just been warming up, challenging each other to some crazy licks and some crazy tones. So just before we delve too deeply into the subject at hand, which is the Ibanez guitars, that's the reason you guys are here. A little bit of background on yourselves, both independently and collaboratively. So how did, I know you both went to music colleges respectively. How did you both transition from that world into the world of professional gigging, performing, recording? Was it a slow, gradual thing, or did you kind of jump straight in?
For me, it was mostly, well, after I graduated from college in 2010, it was a long period of not much going on, because you're being ripped out of that comfort of your college, really, and you're left with no schedule, nothing to do. So I just did a bit of gigging here and there, like gala type stuff. Really shady kind of gigs. Nothing exciting at all musically. It was pretty depressing to me at the time.
Dark end of the musician's world.
Yes. I have absolute respect for people who do this at a great level. It just wasn't for me, and I was teaching at a private music school, which also wasn't for me. There was just too many people among the students who just couldn't give a damn about guitar, who wouldn't even listen to guitar music. So I knew I kind of had to make a change in my life. So I bought a camera, filmed some performances, put them up on YouTube, and the whole thing kind of, over the course of 10 years,
just built up
ran
slowly.
its course.
Yeah. And were you composing the whole time that you were doing that work?
I was actually, and I really got to thank my father here. He was paying my rent for the longest time. I was releasing a solo album in 2013, which wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the parental financial support. Right. So yeah, that was really a thing. Before I started making money, I felt that I had to put out an album, which of course is a tough endeavor
that's no easy feat
if you have no financial backing, really. So yeah, but that came out in 2013, and from there it just went. Everything from there has been bigger and better.
Yeah, so you're given a nice chance initially, and it's worked out.
Yeah, I'm happy
well.
I put the hours in back in the day into that album. I'm working on the second one right now.
Okay.
So yeah, but now I'm doing it under much nicer circumstances.
Yeah. You're more comfortable in your own
oh yes
situation.
Okay. Yeah.
And how about yourself, Tom? What was
Well,
yours?
sort of fairly similar story. So I graduated from Leeds College of Music in 2002, desperate to be a New York style jazz musician.
Right.
And very quickly realised that there were two things that were problematic about that. First was a talent problem.
Oh, come on.
Just in terms of being that style of musician, because jazz is a very competitive field, and the level is so insane these days. You've got guys like Jonathan Kreisberg, Adam Rogers, all these guys. The New York kind of set, if you like, and you know, the dream died fairly quickly. Not in a bad way, it's not a sob story, but the dream died fairly quickly, and I realised that I was going to have to look for other ways to make a living from playing guitar. So for a while, when I graduated, I was gigging for a while, mostly jazz duo stuff, which is actually bizarrely what we do now. Doing lots and lots of that, doing 3 and 4 hour gigs on a weekend, just in a big stretch to earn some money, and was doing a fair bit of teaching. And then I ended up working at a record store for a few years, just to make ends meet. Because as a jazz musician, you don't earn any money. Just warning you if you need to know. But don't, follow your dreams. And then after I'd done that for a few years, I actually got big time into teaching, and I was working for Yamaha for quite a while. And that was really cool because it was a solid, stable job, and it allowed me to do some gigs, and it allowed me to kind of just chill out a little bit and not worry too much about finances. But I was still playing guitar. But I saw my playing doing this because I was teaching groups of 8 kids every day, and you spent most of your time trying to control the class rather than actually
make sure nobody dies.
Yeah, the musical challenge is diminished.
Swallows the chalk.
Yeah. So you weren't being musically challenged.
Not in the slightest. And also the other problem for me was, some of the guys might know I tune differently to standard tuning, and I was teaching in standard tuning, which was like my brain was being extremely schizophrenic, so it was very difficult. So in the end, very similar to Martin, I was already interested in camera gear, that kind of thing. So at the time when I first did my first videos, I was using one of the white plastic shell MacBooks with a 480p webcam, shooting terrible quality videos, but they got views back in those days.
It's content, yeah.
Yeah, so I did a few videos on YouTube and MySpace back in the day. That's how we first hooked up. And then
MySpace days, that's how old we are.
Yeah. We are the first generation.
We are the first generation, like we hate the word, but internet guitar players, that type of thing. We're not really internet guitar players because we started guitar playing long before the internet was in consumers' households. But if you will, those people who are perceived as being brought up, washed up by the internet, we're kind of the first generation of
I suppose you guys came about at a time when that was just starting to take off in the big time, and you could monopolise on that.
Exactly, you could get a lot of views very quickly. So, through that, I entered, this is like an X Factor style thing. It's really bizarre to say it now, but I entered a guitar competition called Guitar Idol, just on a whim, and got through to the final of that. And that led to one opportunity, which was working with Lick Library. And Lick Library are a big company, and that gets you a little bit more exposure. And then suddenly I found myself being asked to do things. Like I get a phone call from a school in North Carolina saying, would you like to come over and do a clinic? And I'm like, what?
How?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What's a clinic?
Yeah, well, there you go, exactly. First of all, what is it? And secondly, what do you mean? Like I'm just a guy from Leeds, what do you want me to do a clinic for? And I think it was primarily because of I'm very aware of this as well, it's primarily because of the technical side of things, because of the legato side of things, because people are always interested in that. And then, like Martin, you develop a sound and people are interested in it. And the interesting thing from our perspective is we spread across quite a few different genres. So the jazz guys are interested in us, but the shred guys are interested in us as well. So I think we monopolized on a couple of different things. And tonight, for instance, we start off with kind of, not shred, but more kind of traditional guitar clinic stuff, and then we get straight into the jazz material. So we cover a few different bases, and I think we've both monopolized on that. Not consciously, but it's just one of those things. It's worked out quite nicely. Yeah. And from there, we've both been traveling all over the world doing stuff together and individually. Mostly for me, clinics and masterclasses. I don't gig so much these days because I have a family to support, and there is no money in it.
You've got to take the work that you get.
Yeah, and I like a certain kind of lifestyle, so I like to be able to afford things when I want to buy them and so on and so forth. So, I like a certain kind of lifestyle, and this it allows me to, clinics and masterclasses every now and again allows me to have that kind of lifestyle. So it's kind of nice.
And just to step back a little bit, do you both remember when you reached the stage in your lives where you thought we can actually start to work on the saleability of your skills? So, was there a defining moment where you thought I can actually make a living off of this?
The big turning point for me was in late 2011 when I was approached by Jamtrack Central, and I was actually, after Alex Hutchings, Guthrie Govan and Jack Tamarat, the first guy that after the first batch of guys was able to release a product on that platform, which was amazing because all of a sudden I had a passive income, and that allowed me to actually, I forgot that early, that was one of another big hallmark that allowed me to make an album. Because all of a sudden I didn't have to worry about having gigs anymore or about teaching kids. I had just enough to get by and to take time off and be creative. So that was a big turning point. And I never really capitalized on those things so much. I could have done a lot more and earned a lot more, but I'm that kind of guy. I prefer to throw money out the window and make an album, and just like I'm doing right now.
That's nice in retrospect, but at least you've achieved what you wanted to achieve, what you set out to achieve.
I mean, that's the little bit of idealism that's within me. Just like the whole live in studio sessions thing that I do with my band, which has taken over my YouTube channel like 90%. It's 90% of what I do on YouTube, and those videos are a massive production. They're like 12 cameras rolling at the same time, 14 people in the same room. Right? Yeah, we're not using any B-roll footage. It's all live footage, simultaneous cameras. And that is a complete non-profit thing. And the only reason we're doing it, and everybody's spending money on it, is because it's fun. Yes, that's the only reason that's possible is because of the passive income. So major props to Jamtrack Central for making that happen for me. Yeah.
It's the same for me, I guess, because I remember one very specific experience, which was putting on a masterclass 3-day workshop with Rick Graham. A lot of the guys out there will know Rick's playing. Rick's phenomenal, and we were amazed when we advertised this thing for £250 per person for 3 days, and we had guys come from Portugal, from the US, and it just blew our minds. And so we wrote all this material for it, far too much. The guys, it was like, a lot of guys describe those things as like a fire hydrant of harmony to the face. We just blasted them with far too much information. Anyway, we filmed it all, and I wrote all the PDF files and transcribed everything. And then I realized that I could sell it on my website. I was thinking, I've done this stuff now, and we did it once. I must be able to reuse this material. So I built myself a website, again, like developing different skill sets that allow you to monopolize on that passive income, and started selling lessons, and was almost embarrassed and guilty by how fast they were selling. Because I'd never been in this position before where you wake up in the morning and you check your emails and you've sold 25 lessons overnight and you go, well, I didn't do anything.
Well, that must be incredibly both flattering but also just a bit confusing. In the age of the internet where everything is so accessible to everybody, the fact that people are still willing to commit to spending their hard-earned money on learning the guitar, you know, buying a guitar is one thing and investing in the equipment is one, but to actually develop your own skills.
And also, like with all the online lessons that are available for free, to actually go to actually put money into one of our products. And this is kind of like the fine art to, like I have lessons on my YouTube channel where I sit down with somebody through Skype privately and teach them. Just it's quite a bit of information that I'm giving away that was hard earned on my part. But the art is really to find just the right ratio of giving stuff away and luring people in, but also letting them know that if they want to have more, they're going to have to
Stump up.
to up their game a little bit. It sounds meaner than it is. It's really like when I do an online lesson thing. It's an off the cuff thing. I sit down with somebody, I film it, I put it down. When I write a masterclass, like my improv masterclass at Jam Track Central, that is 4 months of my time, 8 hours a day writing. That is a whole different thing. And I think I deserve to get paid for that, and I'm happy to put other stuff.
It's the music
out there
business,
for free.
and it's got to be, you know, you've got to see a return. Otherwise, aside from your own enjoyment, what's the point in doing it? So, how did you guys start to collaborate? When did this happen that you decided to get together and form kind of a jazz duo?
There were a few points of contact. So MySpace was the first one, and then the Petrucci Forum, the John Petrucci Forum. Back in the day, I mean, I don't know if this was you probably never had anything to do with this, but there was this amazing community online. Back in the days when people used to write on forums before Facebook took over.
And YouTube comments.
And YouTube comments.
World,
You know, this was the very early days, so we're talking 2007, 2008 kind of period, maybe a little bit later.
I joined the Petrucci Forum in 2010, in October 2001.
I was going to say.
Yeah, that's how long it's been. So I was like 15 or something.
Everybody was posting videos on there, and huge, like crazy 100-long, you know, page threads of just talking about guitar playing. So we became aware of each other on there, and then we'd met each other at Sir Mega Jam. So you organised that. Maybe you talk about that, and then you know we met.
It was like the first online jam thing that I'm aware of its kind that's been out there.
We started a
horrible trend.
Died after we started it.
I'm so sorry for this, guys, but like I called a bunch of guys up, like probably the best Petrucci Forum players that I could possibly think of, and those were Andy Wood, Tom Quayle, Rick Ram, and we had one thing in common: we played the same guitars at the time, so I thought that was a cool common thread or a cool basis for collaboration. So I made a backing track, and we all shredded over it, and we called it a Mega Jam, and ever since those have scorched the earth. Yes. But it was a cool thing at the time, and I'm really proud of it. Yeah. It was a cool original idea, and we kind of took it from there, and then I think the Italy thing happened.
Yeah, so we got asked to play at the same jazz festival, and so we were in the same hotel, and I think we got into my hotel room. We thought, so did they ask us to do something together? Or
we were going to do solo sets, but then they asked us, hey, why don't you play something together?
So we just played some standards together.
And had you physically played together much before that point?
No. So we'd met each other at Music Mess, maybe.
We had a jam at Music Mess or something
Possibly.
like that. Yeah, hotel room jams and stuff like that.
But there was a funny thing. So we did some tunes together. It wasn't really heavily arranged. And then Martin, afterwards, we thought, well, let's do something with this. So he came over to my place. I think this is the right timeline. And we sat for hours and hours and hours and came up with a set, basically, of
Still
fully
using today.
We're still using today. We only do a very small chunk of it. We had an hour and a half's worth of music.
Almost 2 hours.
Almost
I think,
2 hours. And then we toured that a little bit, you know, just gigging that stuff. It wasn't a clinic, it was just a gig. We gigged the stuff.
We do, like, we do like a NAMM hotel room appearances and stuff like that.
We do secret gigs every year.
Secret gigs, yeah.
So, you know, it's quite a nice little event. And so we jam that stuff a lot. And then we were playing to as many non-musician audiences as musicians, so it was quite a nice experience. In fact, one of the best gigs we did was to a complete audience of non-guitar players, which was very unique for me. I'm used to playing.
It validates what you do almost in a different way, doesn't it?
It terrifies me though. I'd much rather play in front of guitar players, which is the opposite of what you would expect.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
I much prefer to play to a general audience, like as mixed as possible. Guitar players, non-guitar players, male, female, old, young. The more mixed, the more I enjoy it.
And I think the material that you both do does allow you to be acceptable in that kind of, you know, in as broad a range as possible, because just listening to the kind of stuff that you guys have been playing and checking out some of your YouTube content as well, it is a very broad kind of spanning.
I started singing kind of because of that.
Yeah, and you tutor vocals as well, is that right? You offer vocal lessons now as well?
Oh no, I wouldn't dare. No, I'm a hobby singer. No.
He always says this. Actually, the new stuff he's got coming out on the second album it's going to turn a few heads, I think. And I can say, I mean, I've heard it in demo form, and it sounds unbelievable.
I'm singing 4 or 5 tunes.
It's going to surprise quite a few people, I think.
Had you always been singing, or was there a turning point that you decided?
I started 2.5 years ago.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and then I immediately started taking lessons.
Just annoyingly talented.
Been taking
lessons.
Always
those people.
Been taking lessons every week since.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So leaning on to the reason we're here, which is Ibanez Guitars, did the collaboration kind of start at the same time? What was the sort of turning point where you both became involved with the company?
There's this timeline to it which starts with Martin actually. So
I became an Ibanez endorsee in 2015. It's kind of a funny story. Basically, we were both Laney artists at the time. We played at the Laney booth. Laney, as you know, is related to Ibanez through numerous ways. So somehow the artist relation people of Ibanez got to see us play, and I was so close to not being at that NAMM because one of my flights got cancelled, and I had to have a layover in Amsterdam for over 24 hours, and I was so close to just calling it quits and heading home. And if I had done that, I surely wouldn't be here. Yeah. That is pretty much a fact. So yeah, got involved with Ibanez. So. And a couple weeks into my engagement with them, I basically got an email saying we want to develop a new guitar, like the ultimate player's player guitar, they call it. And that ended up with them showing up at my house, coming from Japan and LA, straight to Leipzig into my little flat. I had two seats at the time. I had to go to my neighbors and borrow a few extra so I could get everybody seated. And then we just went through a bunch of files and folders with all the designs for the headstocks and body shapes and finishes and pickup configurations. And they did that with a couple of people worldwide. And that led to a few prototypes being sent my way and me giving feedback. And we ended up meeting each other at NAMM and updating each other on the project. And so on and so forth, yeah. And at some point, which is about the point that he got involved, I was offered a signature deal because my old contract with Ibanez ran out and we had to renew it, and I had no idea what was going to happen. I was just said, maybe I'm going to get a new free guitar or something. And yeah, then they offered me a signature deal and the rest is history. Yeah.
So from that point, how long did it take to kind of materialize the MM1 model? A year? Yeah,
but I mean, that was basically the timeline they had prepared for the AZ to come out. That was not due to my MM1. I was very low maintenance. We can talk about the differences between the AZ range and my guitar in a second, but there was just one major tweak and the rest was just minor tweaks. Yeah.
So they'd already delivered you kind of a nice basis for your guitar that you were happy with?
I was already co-developing it, and it could have been coincidence or they took my advice, but basically anything that I vouched for, which was, for example, to separate the line of guitars into a 22 fret, 2 single coils, 1 humbucker, and a 24 fret, 2 humbucker, all with vintage tremolos and locking tuners and stainless steel frets, all that stuff I was saying anyway. So it was already a signature guitar by that point, really. So I only had to have some minor tweaks like the aesthetics, the flame top. The mahogany body was my biggest contribution because that's the only mahogany guitar you can get in the AZ range, and the rest is just aesthetics like chrome hardware and abalone inlays. Yeah.
Which turned out very well.
Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, people love it. I get so many comments and so much response about the color. And every color and every flame top you see is unique. It's slightly different. Today, the ones that you guys got is way more blue than this. And it's funny, like this one is a bit more greenish, but on the photos and the videos, if you look over there, it looks blue. And the actual production model, ironically, looks more like mine looks on the photos.
Yeah. So it's almost like reverting to vintage guitars where no two were exactly alike, and you just kind of, you had to hunt around to find the best
With
one.
him, it's even more extreme though. Yeah.
So how did yours come about then, Tom? You said it was a little later down the line.
Yeah, so these guys, I knew nothing about these guitars at all, and for maybe 3 years, every time I was at the NAMM show, the Ibanez guys had come up to me and said, "We'd love to offer you an artist deal anytime, not a signature deal, but an artist deal. Anytime you're ready, just let us know." And then they would bow, and I would go, "Oh, thank you so much, but I'm quite happy." And at the time I was playing, I had a very strong relationship with some Hungarian builders, the Fibonacci guys, and I still have a very strong relationship with them. But Ibanez has always, for me, from the day, my very first good guitar was an Ibanez. It was an RG 470, I think, or a 450, I can't quite remember. It was such a long time ago. From that point onwards, I've always owned Ibanez guitars, and every hero of mine, the real visceral hero. So in the initial days, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, John Petrucci, like both of us, he is the guy from that period of our lives. We worship the John Petrucci Ibanez days.
We're just browsing.
We were devastated.
Browsing eBay earlier for
JPM
Ibanez Petrucci models.
We were, yeah. So I still want one.
The fire's still burning.
Oh, in a big way.
Yes.
I mean, that doesn't go away. That whole, I hope it doesn't go away anyway. The feeling, I started when I was 15 and straight into that stuff. But then even further down in terms of my development, George Benson, Pat Metheny, John Schofield, they all play Ibanez. The brand, Andy Timmons, the brand is just, it's everything that we associate with guitar heroes and who we wanted to be. I wanted to be John Petrucci when I was 15. I'm not embarrassed to admit it. That's just, it's like we talked to Lee, sat over there. Lee wanted to be Steve Vai when he was younger. And this is what you do when you're 15 and you first start learning guitar. So there was the 1 year, it was 2 years ago at NAMM, where they pulled me into a room, this tiny little broom cupboard on the booth, and they said, "Listen, we just want to tell you about this project we've got. We don't want you to do anything, we just want you to tell us what you think about it." And they only handed me the neck. And I was utterly blown away by this neck because it's not what you associate with Ibanez guitars at all. It feels like a very high-end boutique Super Strat neck. Yeah. It's satin finished, it's got an incredible profile, stainless steel frets, locking tuners, everything you would expect to find.
And they bring in the roasted maple.
The roasted maple, exactly. So everything I had in the guitars I was playing that were $6,000 was in this neck here. So I was very surprised. They didn't tell me the price, but I assumed it wasn't going to be $6,000. Anyway, so I walked away saying, "Congratulations, hope everything goes really well with that," and just thought nothing of it, And then an email arrives, of all things they did it via email, an email arrives saying, "Hi Tom, we're coming to Leeds, which is my hometown. We're flying in and we're going to bring some prototype guitars and we want to build you a signature guitar." And I just had no idea what to do with that information at all. Yeah. I've been lucky enough to meet all my heroes, become friends with some of them, play with some of the greatest musicians, who I worship, and become friends with them, and so on and so forth, and play all over the world. And this was just a different level. This is the dream that I had when I was 15. I didn't even really, this is so cheesy, but didn't even dare to dream it. It was just something you dared
it's so
to think
absurd.
of.
Like,
it's just ridiculous.
What are the odds?
So far away.
Yeah. So they come over and they've got this prototype guitar, and it was a really hard decision for me because it wasn't. It was a really easy decision, but an incredibly difficult decision at the same time because I had an incredible relationship with these guys, these Fibonacci guys, and they build amazing guitars. And to change brands, to have this sudden piece of information have to change brand was very difficult, but equally it was the easiest decision I've ever made because you just don't say no to that because it's your dream.
And it's a blank canvas as well.
The other thing is, had the guitar not fitted the bill and they'd said, "Well, we're going to make you, this kind of cheap guitar or whatever," but the guitar was already 99.9% there for me. So all I needed to do was just spec out a couple of things that made it more visually appealing to me. And I was very clear in my mind that it was a change in my life. I was a little bit older, had less hair, I decided I didn't want to go down the road of having a crazy elaborate top with crazy colours. I'd done all that. I own 18 guitars like that. So I wanted something much more natural looking. So we went for the monkey pod top, which is very natural. And then it transpired that these can go from this, which is a very subtle looking top, to these insane, like Koa style figured tops.
Yeah.
So
that's what I thought it was the first time I saw.
So
your
well,
model,
exactly.
yeah.
So they showed me a picture of it, and it's like a cross between Koa and what's the other wood? Carina. Yeah. So you've got these incredible grain running through some of these guitars, and I was sold immediately because I wanted something so natural looking. And when you combine that with the other woods, the roasted maple, the different shades of wood that you've got, it's just a beautiful looking guitar. Very similar to Martin's, different pickup selection. They're the same pickups, but just a different configuration. Obviously, I have single coils. Hardware is identical, and they cover every single bass. So you can do, this has 9 different sounds from a 5-way switch. You can do everything from Wayne Krantz or Stevie Ray Vaughan style position 2 and 4. You can do the searing lead stuff. You can do the gorgeous glassy single coil tones in the neck, and then flick the switch up and you've got like an archtop style jazz sound. It's ridiculous. And that was the other thing that sold it to me. When they came over and they brought the prototype, they said, go to the neck position, flick the switch up and try and play some jazz. And I was like, oh my word, that's genius.
With this 2 humbucker guitar, you don't really associate those types of guitars with good clean tones. Truth is, 90% of what I'm playing on this tour is clean tones. And I get everything from a faux hollow body tone, Pat Metheny-esque type tone, super mid-rangey and dark, to a bright but full in-between type sound. I'm not trying to mimic single coils. I try to use these positions as something unique. This is a mistake that a lot of people do. They try to make humbucker guitars sound like single coil guitars. I love the position, the middle positions. Like the position 2 on a 2 humbucker guitar is one of my favorite sounds in the world, and I can't get it with a middle pickup. And likewise, if I go to the middle pickup and flick that switch, it's kind of that same sound, but the whole thing gets rewired, and all of a sudden it's much louder and bassier. So this guitar has some serious clean tones, even though you wouldn't expect it from the visual.
I very much enjoyed playing. I've played both of your model guitars. We've had every guitar that comes into the store we demo. So like you said about the multiple different finishes on each guitar, you know, we've seen quite a multitude of different finishes. They're both very comfortable to play. The range of tones in there are immense. You've both got very versatile pickup configurations. Was there something that felt like home, just a little bit more about each of them though, yourself with HSS?
Yeah, so for me, the only H guitars I've ever owned have been big fat jazz boxes or 335 style guitars, and I have an Ibanez AS103 which covers that bass, but it's home. I have 2 homes if you like. So one is this kind of super strat style guitar, which is really home for me, and it has to be HSS. I'm far too much of a position 2 and 4 guy. Just love that in between splashy kind of crystalline kind of sound, especially with a little bit of drive where you get that little bit of compression kicking in. I just love it. I'm a massive Wayne Krantz fan, so that sound is really in my head. But equally, just being able to flick the switch up and have the 2 single coils wide in series as a humbucker, just realistically, I don't need a jazz guitar ever again. You know, I still will play jazz guitars.
Bold statement, but
you know, I love playing jazz guitars. But yeah, it just covers everything basically. It's just a really, really complete guitar. It's funny because you know, it kind of negates the excuse to own multiple guitars, because I mean that excuse should never be negated, but it kind of negates it because you don't need anything else really. It covers all the bases that we would ever need.
Especially when you're relying on the instrument for traveling as well, but also to make your living. You know, you just want to have one instrument, maybe 2, that's so comfortable and so familiar that you don't need to look at anything else.
I love to play T-style guitars. I love to play 7 strings. I love to play all kinds of stuff. But if I could choose just one guitar to take away, it'll have to be a 2 humbucker 24 fret guitar. Somebody asked me the other day, why do you have those 2 extra frets? And then I actually had to think about it. It wasn't so much of a I didn't overthink that choice so much. It was just that I was used to it. But also I noticed that the most popular song of mine uses those 2 upper frets like 3 times in the tune, so I wouldn't know what to do without them. And also I get asked by a lot of metal bands to record guest solos, and you need that kind of upper fret access and for the shreds and all that stuff. Yeah.
Either way, it's just nice to see that there's been a lot of thought, obviously, on your parts that's gone into these guitars. They're both timeless designs. Would you say that you kind of collaborated with Ibanez at just the right time in your playing careers. You know, had it been a few years previous, it could have been something completely different that you came out with.
This would have been
to
very
suit your
different,
needs.
Yeah,
I've kind of been settled on this type of guitar for at least, let me say, 10 years. Before that, I've been playing an HSS guitar, and I was really into the single coil neck thing, which I still am. But I'm trying to be unique nowadays, and that's why I don't put on a hollow body when I play jazz, because I don't want to compare myself to any of the greats who do that. So instead I try to do my own thing and try to create an approximation of that with this guitar and therefore come up with something else. The same, I don't use a single coil guitar for the clean stuff so much because I like the unique sounding in between positions of a two humbucker guitar. It's just has to do with originality, like doing something that has tradition but doing it in slightly your own way.
Well, that's the way all the great guitar players do it, isn't it? You know, you find what works for you, and then the music just happens, whatever it might be. So all I can say is congratulations to you both for creating such fantastic instruments. Looking forward to hearing them in the clinic tonight. Doors are opening imminently, so it's been great to chat with you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.